Thank you so much for your patience. I'd like to call the April 4th, 2022 Beacon City School District Board of Ed meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Kelly.
Ms. Betterman?
Here.
Ms. Flynn?
Excused.
Mr. Galloway?
Excused.
Mr. Fang?
Here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Ms. Stadler?
Excused.
Ms. Hewer?
Here. Thank you. Matt, fire exit?
Exits are in the back of the LGI.
Thank you. We're going to start with open to the public. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment?
I would.
Okay. We have a, just so you know, we have a 4-minute limit,
That's okay.
time limit. Hopefully that'll be enough for you.
I'm Jessica Eric-Simone, and Miss Hewer, Dr. Landau. Thank you for this incredible service you're giving us. I want to bring to you today my concern and frustration for the math curriculum and the need for extra support, especially in Rombout Middle School. My student is in the 6th grade. She graduated from sergeant school, exceeding and meeting up to all of the guidance and things that she had been exceeding expectations. And then immediately going into the 6th grade, started getting flunking scores on her quizzes. I contacted the teacher and I went in hierarchy. I talked to him about guidance, whatever might be that he could help me support him, partnering with him. And it was very difficult to get answers from my student's teacher. But eventually, I got a couple of emails back from him, ended up talking to the principal at RMS. I talked to the guidance counselor. I went in hierarchy of trying to get my child's needs met, being an advocate for her. And it felt like I was being met with, they were like, was protecting the teacher and not being an advocate for my student. I talked to some other people. A lot of parents were sharing my own frustration, but I started teaching her the curriculum every day. I spend an hour and a half with her to go through the day's homework, what she learned at school, what she needed to get clarification on. I'm a medical massage therapist. I'm not a math teacher by any stretch, but her math teacher isn't communicating the needs that she has to work the process and give the support that she was asking for. She went in early, several days, and he did not meet her. And the only other time for her is lunchtime to be met to get extra help. And in one of my conversations with him, he said, well, a lot of people coming out of COVID are experiencing, difficulty with multiplication tables, and that would be a good thing to study at home. We do that. If I don't go over the homework with her, like I was out of town a couple of weeks ago, she flunked a test because it was left up to the teacher. And my frustration isn't just for my own student. There are at least 10 people who I hear from, oh, she's flunking math. The math is so hard, it's moving too fast. Like she can't catch up. And I know it's the state curriculum, and other districts seem to be administering it proper, in a way that the students can absorb it. But there's so much anxiety. When she comes home, there's crying, I'm stupid, I don't know how to do this. Because there's been some kind of trajectory placed on her. No, she's on the principal's honor roll, but it's because I'm teaching the math every day. And on the weekends, we go over the things that are going to be learned the next day to try in hopes that she's able to grasp it more confidently. But there's a confidence if you sit down at a test and you can do the problem, the operation properly, then you feel like you can.
It's 4 minutes.
And then I'm sorry, have I gone over?
You have, well, you've reached your time limit, if you, but
okay.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Ultimately, there are other children who are really struggling and don't have my privilege to be able to do what I'm doing. And I want them to be able to get the PSAT and, hit it out of the park. And so I'm asking for more support.
I understand your concern. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the meeting. Is there someone else that wanted to make, go on.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm too a parent. I also have a curriculum, thoughts on curriculum. So my son,
Do you mind just saying your name?
I am Helen Eamon.
Thanks, Helen.
I moved to Beacon in 2018, partly because I was really excited about how the district seemed to be evolving, new leadership. I watched your acceptance speech, for lack of a better way of describing it. I really respected the 3 quotes you used. My mom is also an educator. My son is in Mrs. Fabia's kindergarten classroom at South Ave Elementary. We are having a wonderful time with Mrs. Fabia and with South Ave Elementary overall. Principal Glenn has been great. I know your wife is the nurse there. She's been awesome. We've had 2 COVID scares, really clear, consistent communication under pressure, I'm sure. So I'm not here today in any type of adversarial context. I just wanted to talk a little bit about a conversation that's been happening amongst a lot of other parents for kindergarteners, particularly, about the iReady program within our classroom. Since I only have 4 minutes, I won't start with my experience, but I helped found an ed tech company, and I grew it to acquisition over 10 years. So I'm intimately familiar with the vendor side of education technology. I have sold to Mrs. Rudicinda O'Neill. I'm familiar with the RFPs. I know about state approvals. I put vocabulary on the New York State Approval Board. It's now owned by Nearpod, so it's under that RFP. So I understand that there's a lot at play when you're selecting curricular tools, and I know that it's a really hard job. So specifically, I have some concern about the way our days for kindergarteners are being changed, and whether or not that supports the brain science for where they need the most support when they're in a school environment. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with iReady as a day-to-day implementation in a classroom. I know that Mrs. Fabia is trying to get iReady done early on in the morning. Are you familiar, actually? I should stop. So it's a twice-a-year diagnostic, was what I was told in the fall. I first got the letter home, and I thought, oh, no. But it's turned into a twice-a-week practice center for 5-year-olds in our kindergarten classrooms. So right now, twice a week, they're expected for 15 minutes on each subject to sit and complete a practice. I've gone online and completed some of these practices myself, and they are super weak compared to in-person instruction because 5-year-olds don't learn best from screens. There's a lot of brain science that suggests that. Places like the Harvard Center for the Developing Child, Temple University has some professors who have done a lot of research on screens for education and young kids specifically. And I think we're supplanting some really important station time and peer-to-peer moments for 5-year-olds. And I just think we can probably do a lot better than iReady as an assessment for a 5-year-old. I believe in assessments. I'm not an opt-outer. Principal Glenn, when I first started talking to him about this, was like, you're going to opt out in 3rd grade, right? And I was like, no, I'm not. I promise that's not. And I believe in the power of assessments to show equity. So I I come to you just asking for us to think about how we treat our pre-K kindergartner and first graders as a cohort curricularly, rather than pulling kindergarten up into this third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth type of data assessment. I think it's really important to recognize that their brains are drastically different and that, you know, they need to be assessed drastically differently than a 10-year-old peer, and that there's a lot of creative solutions out there, and I'm at time. So I actually have a separate ask, which would be, is there space for parents to do presentations to the board longer than 4 minutes? If it's organized, we could send it to you ahead of time, vetted.
You're welcome to send anything you want to the board. In terms of making like a public presentation to the board, I think we would have to first talk to Matt and work through our assistant superintendent for curriculum and,
Oh, and
you
I've
know.
been in touch with Mrs. Rudicinda O'Neill.
Yeah.
I'm not coming totally out of the woodworks here.
Yeah.
We've been emailing back and forth now for a couple months, actually since September when I first got the letter home. I'm in a unique position in that I know a lot more about iReady than most parents. So when I got the letter, I had a real sense of what we were doing, and when it was a twice-a-year diagnostic, I thought, I'm not sure how great the data will be on that, but okay. And now, of course, we have to practice it because it's a very idiosyncratic assessment, so it requires practice. But my second question is,
Well, so
oh, are we not allowed? Should I come back next time for a second question?
you're welcome to communicate with the board in between meetings, but we do try to adhere to the 4-minute time limit just because it doesn't, if I apply it differently to you than I do to someone else, then it doesn't seem fair to them. I hope you understand. I'm not trying to shut you down, and I look forward to an email from
It's a highly
you.
regulated system. We're working with it right now.
We have
I
a,
understand.
we
I
have a
didn't
long
know that was an
history of that not being evenly applied. And so I'm trying in my time to make it even. But like I said, I think you have our email, or do you, and you're welcome to
On
emails.
the-
And
the
of
BOE
course,
last name at Beacon.
and if you want to email the entire board, it's boe@bcsd@beaconk12.org.
Okay.
And of course, you're welcome to the next meeting. I'm sorry
I
to.
might come back. No, we might just have 4-minute times together.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Is there anyone online, Mike? Okay.
Just briefly, at the next, full board meeting, April 26th, I think?
I believe so.
I'm sometimes bad at remembering dates. April 26th. SAGI was going to do a presentation, or is planning to do a presentation about professional development planning for next year and beyond. So we can also talk a bit more about iReady in the
Great.
presentation,
Super.
too. And I can follow up with you if I, have you emailed?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'll follow up with you, too.
And that will be the second time the board has been presented with iReady as a new part of our curriculum, so,
I did watch September 27th meeting.
Yeah.
So I saw the original presentation.
great, okay.
I'm
Thanks,
trying to do my research for you all, so I don't come in unprepared.
appreciate that. So we have 2 workshops tonight. The first, we have from Duchess Boces, their budget presentation. Matt Metzger, and Jason I'm still not getting it right. Shetelick, is that right?
So good evening, Superintendent Landau and members of the Board of Education. My name is Matt Metzger. I'm the business official for Duchess Boces, and my superintendent, Jason Shatelik's here. And we're here to present the 22-23 administrative budget specifically. Just to recap, this vote will take place on, I believe it's Tuesday, April 26th. And we have 2 incumbents running unopposed this year. for Board of Trustees, that would be Mr. Ralph Schimento and Mr. Gully Stanford. And at that time, you'll also be voting on this administrative budget that I'm about to present to you. After we get through the numbers and business part of it, Jason will tell you about all the exciting things that's really going to start happening at Boces. So really, I always like to give a little bit overview of the Boces funding, and I really like to put it in three major categories. There's the administrative piece, which includes retiree health insurance expense. There's capital rentals, and then there's the program services piece. The program services, I think, is what most people think of when they think of Boces. That's our special education program, Career and Technical Institute, educational resources, information technology, things like that. I like to reiterate every year that there's really a return of surplus. The Boces doesn't hold any fund balance at the end of the year, so when we close our books, we take our revenues, we subtract our expenditures, and whatever's remaining goes back to the school districts that participated. And I just also want to mention that Boces aid is always certainly incentive for the district to do business with us. There is certainly aid on certain allowable expenditures in each of the programs. If I could just move back to the administrative, piece again here now, just wanted to speak to that's really the budget that includes really the superintendent, the board clerk, the Board of Education, but it also includes the retiree health insurance expense, and that's quite a big burden, and I'll illustrate that later, and I'm sure you've heard me in the past speak to that. But my example is that when a teacher teaches in a special education program during her career at Boces, but then when she retires, her health insurance expense gets moved to this piece of the budget, and it doesn't go to the program where she had taught of, and it's like I said, it's just quite a burden that we have, but it's legally what the state says we need to do. And then I also like to just speak to the capital and rentals because I think they do need to go hand in hand with the administrative budget. Capital is really not to be confused with the $36.8 million project, which you've made all your payments for. That's over. It's really the normal, boiler repair, doing roofs. And the rentals is associated with our largest one, which will be coming to an end, is at the alternative high school. But it also can include when we do in-district classes, we pay the schools for those. So when we present this budget, and this is the non-retiree piece of the budget, we have certainly the salaries for the, superintendent and the business office and the personnel department, and certainly the Board of Education. And we're actually presenting a budget that's actually down 7%, down to $1.9 million. And I know that probably sounds like great news, and I think you're going to expect that you're going to probably have to contribute less this year, but a little bit of a spoiler alert, that's not going to occur. Because we really have some other revenue struggles, which I'll speak to later as well. And then just to kind of earmark the retiree health insurance, we see that that's moving from $4.9 million to $5 million. Duchess Boces participates in the Educational Health Insurance Consortium with 27 other districts in the area. And this year, there's a Medicare eligible rate and there's a non-Medicare eligible rate. And even though the non-Medicare eligible rate's going up 5%, there was actually a decrease in the Medicare eligible folks. So that we're actually going to benefit from that a little bit. We have our retirees are probably just about split in half between being over 65 and under 65. So we're actually not going to see that much of an increase there, which is good. And when we put the combination of the non-retiree piece together and the retiree piece, we're just a little bit lower than last year, just under 1%. What we're going to ask you to vote on in a few weeks is the $6.9 million number. Now to the revenue piece. So there's certainly, I'm here tonight obviously because Beacon's going to make a contribution towards that. So that's what I call the billing to component districts there, which is up, near close to 8%. Other revenues are things like interest income, which really hasn't been great in probably over 10 years. But there are other revenues. One such being when our health insurance consortium declares when they think they have too much fund balance, they declare a holiday. And then we don't have to pay 1 month's worth of health insurance. But another one is we've had this retiree health insurance accrual that the Boces has had for several years, probably in excess of 10 years. And that was when the financial statements wanted to recognize the post-employment benefits. And then some time ago, the CPA said that we should only have 1 year's worth in there. And we had this plan of using it each year as a source of revenue. But we're really coming to the end on that. So I don't have much to use for that anymore. And we've been trying to, keep rates low. So we're kind of coming to the end of that. And that's why what you're seeing are our other revenues is down a considerable amount. And then that means that the district has to contribute that much more. So really just to kind of sum it up for Beacon specifically, because I know that's where your interest is. It's based on our WADA. That's the resident weighted average daily attendance. That's information that the school district sends up. It's what the state aid department uses for a lot of their aid ratios. And I think it's a consistent number that is set up in law this way so that we don't show favoritism to one district or the other. But about that third column from the right, you'll see that in Dutchess County, the RWAD is actually going down $1,500 from the previous year, not dollars. And Beacon's actually down 183. So you're actually down a little bit more than what the average is for the, for the county. So your increase next year for your contribution is up just under 5% or another $16,000. And then, as I said, I wanted to speak to the capital piece as well, capital rental, because I think it's important that it goes hand in hand with the administrative budget. I think it's, it's your contribution. So rentals, very excited this year because, our alternative high school site at Beta, which we've been renting for over 20 years, our lease is going to expire at the end of December. So I only need to really budget half a year's worth there, and we'll be in our new alternative high school. So there's a decrease there. And you'll see that the capital is going back up to $600,000. Now, it's been that way for probably close to 5 or 6 years. We had lowered it last year to $150,000 because we had recognized that it was the third and final year for the districts to contribute to our big $36.8 million project. But as I said, we're going to return that to $600,000 this year. So that's a total increase really of just under 5%. And really how that will shake out for Beacon is that's just an additional just under $8,000 for your contribution for that this year. There was other revenues in the past there because we did have an adult ed program that was in the city of Poughkeepsie that used to pay their share of their rent for it, but we've since vacated that facility, so there's really no other revenue sources, and it's really just all on the districts at this point. I'm going to just hand it over now to Jason so he can talk about some of the students.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. Again, as Matt noted, we are on schedule for the new construction. So you'll be getting invites soon to do that walkthrough before we officially open for the new year. We were a bit impacted by TDL, but we were able to overcome, and that was specifically roofing issues, getting the roofing materials. We were able to overcome that and work an accelerated schedule, so we're in a good place right now to open up for the fall. And as Matt noted, the alternative school will be over there in the fall as well. So some of the things we have been doing, one of the major things is advocacy. Spending a lot of time in Albany and trying to explain to legislators that if a child wants to participate in a career in technical education, that they shouldn't be denied for that because a district has to steal from Paul to pay Peter, right? So if a child should want to go to a CTI program, then the state should provide that funding for that child. I don't think any child should be denied or any district should be burdened with making decisions of where to put money. So we've been advocating, and I think you'll see in this year's budget that we've made some headway. It's right now it looks like a pretty positive budget for school districts and Boces. We expect it to continue like that, and we're expecting to continue our advocacy, especially among our assemblymen, assemblywomen, senators. Sue Jacobson are big supporters of CTI, and they've been pushing for pilot programs that wouldn't burden districts with the cost. The state would pay for that cost. So we're continuing to work on those pilots. In regards to Beacon, obviously, unlike Matt, I'm a bit prejudiced since I live here. We've done 8 budget presentations, and obviously Wappingers and Beacon are my favorite. I got to eat dinner tonight. So what we're trying to prepare is trying to make our services a little more portable for districts to our south and to our north. So what that may look like moving forward in September would be a career technical education and STEM bus. Our auto kids are going to take out all the seating of a normal bus, and our carpentry kids are going to replace that with custom bar stools and bars where we'll have laptops set up in it and various TVs, and we'll be able to bring that to elementaries, middle schools, and expose kids to various careers via different technologies such as virtual reality as well as AI. So we're excited that whether that's 3D welding the kids could practice in the bus, surgery, whether that's manufacturing, we'll expose them to various careers in a simple school bus that our kids actually will redo. We're also looking, obviously, at the food truck craze that's going around, enable us to bring our culinary program out to our districts and let kids experience what the kitchen is really about and producing food. So for us, we're looking at various alternatives to address all our districts, because I do that drive every day. So we're also just signed a few MOUs, one with Bristol-Myers Squibb to present career panels to our districts and career training. Bristol-Myers Squibb, Johnson & Johnson, there are probably 10,000 different careers under their umbrella that kids really don't know about. It's not just science, it's also transportation, distribution, and logistics. It's manufacturing, it's a wide variety. We've already had a couple of those panels with the city of Poughkeepsie that went very well, so now we're going to be offering them throughout the district, throughout the county. We're also partnering with Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to do some career exposure and career work with them through their workforce development partnership, opening that up to all the districts. Moving forward, particularly for Boces, so we're transitioning our current auto program to something called Toyota 10. We have a partnership with Toyota that should start in 2023. Is Dutchess County Community College, ourselves, and Toyota. So kids will be trained, will be given 10 to 15 different Camrys, electrical vehicles, and kids will be trained on a Toyota curriculum, and we will create a pipeline of Toyota technicians. Right now, that industry is down by about 70,000 technicians needed throughout the country. And as the electric vehicle market starts growing, that number is going to go up to about 100,000. So we're also looking to bring in Honda as well in the Honda Pack program. We're very similar to the Toyota 10 program. They'll supply cars, they'll supply curriculum, and our kids will be trained to be Honda technicians as well. We're also taking advantage of the current construction going on. So we're lucky enough to have Amity, which is a local neighbor of ours, doing the heavy landscaping and heavy equipment. They're going to help us run a heavy equipment program starting next year. They're clearing a space in our back. They're also willing to loan us heavy equipment, whether that be cranes, bulldozers, et cetera, and we'll be training kids on how to operate heavy equipment, as well as getting them their CDL license, working with the White House. They just put out a new initiative lowering the truck driver's age to 18 and making it a lot easier to get CDL licenses. And we were accepted into that program, so we'll be facilitating that program starting in 2022. Additionally, we continue to write grants. We've really taken on, right now we're in the middle of 5 different grants. One of them being workforce development grant, where we're bringing in an industrial manufacturing production technician pathway, where kids can train for a year and a half in that pathway and start positions starting at $50,000 full benefits. Most of our programs right now, we are combining with Dutchess County Community College. We have a pretty strong relationship with them since Peter, Dr. Jordan, and I started at the same time. So any programs they're offering or any programs we're offering, we're going to try to reflect. So there's a continuum, whether that's their aviation mechanics program and that beautiful airport, and they just built, we'll be offering an aviation mechanics program starting next year. Whether that's mechatronics, which is advanced manufacturing, we're working with Haas Machinery to bring in some of those very large CNC machines and mechatronics equipment next year onto our campus to tie into the new Fishkill Mechatronics Center that's opening up in 2023. It'll be a flawless tie, and kids will have a good base when entering that 2-year program to be successful. So we're excited about that as well. Obviously, BARD is still part of our campus. We're also looking at various early college initiatives. We're working on a partnership with the college right now to offer 15, 30, or an associate's degree pathway for students in high school at a heavily discounted rate. And additionally, we're enhancing our ag science program by partnering with Vassar and Cobleskill. Getting better at that. So it's an accredited course, as well as building a horse stable in the rear of our property, where our kids will be taking care of anywhere from 3 to 5 horses in conjunction with Lucky Orphan in Dover. They don't have enough manpower or land right now to take on more horses, so they'll run a satellite location at Dutchess, and those horses will also be used for therapy as well for our Shaw Point Center. So we're excited about that initiative. We're also looking to meet the mental health needs that a lot of our component districts are facing right now. One of the outstanding needs that popped out during this last 2 years is the fact that there's very few transitional services for our students. So if we have a middle school, high school student go to the emergency room, and unfortunately this is quite common right now in Dutchess County, maybe 5, 6, 7 times a year. They're there for 6 to 8 hours, and it's not a very great experience. And then literally the next day they're back in school. There's a lack of services in there. So what we're trying to do is work with the county to have some beds at Dutchess County Boces, anywhere from 4 to 6 beds where kids can stay anywhere from a week to 60 days after they come out of the emergency room, with wraparound services and also exposure to different careers out there to give them a little more understanding that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And we're also working with the Council of Teens currently around the mental health issue as well, which is a great organization that was started locally here. So on our end, we're just trying a little harder to meet your needs. We've done some surveys. Your superintendents have been great. Matt has been wonderful. And we've been lucky enough to have a nice synergy amongst ourselves to get a better understanding of what needs we have around the county and project those needs so BOCES could meet them. So we're excited about the future, and please look for that invitation in the near future. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jason or Matt?
Just going to finish up with one more slide,
Oh,
if you
sorry.
don't mind. I'd just like to put things in a little bit of a context. So for the 2020-21 school year, Beacon's book of business with BOCES, and that includes not just our BOCES, but cross contracts, was about $7.4 million, all inclusive. There was a surplus returned of $320,000 approximately, and it generated BOCES aid of nearly $1.7 million for almost a return of $2 million. That BOCES aid number does not include high-cost aid that would be generated on special education students. So thank you for your time. Certainly, if you have any questions, and if you think of something afterwards and you wanted to reach out to me, my email address is right up there.
I have a question.
Sure.
The programming sounds terrific, especially the partnerships with DCC. Are those programs available also to students who've already graduated from high school and who may want to pursue like the Toyota certification?
Yeah, so the Toyota 10 and the Honda Pack will be part of our adult school.
Okay.
We have a new director of our adult school, so our programming is really going to be a lot more robust. And things that we're offering in CTI, we're trying to replicate at our adult school. If we're offering heavy equipment in our career, we want to offer it in our adult school as well.
So all of the things you mentioned will be available
we're
to
trying
high
to
school
mirror-
students and adult school?
Correct, we're
That's
trying to mirror
super.
everything, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Could you explain more? You mentioned Fishkill. I'd like to hear more about that.
Sure.
I'd like to see some BOCES down this way.
So Hudson, well, Dutchess County, and I know the county executive is really wants to make Dutchess County the manufacturing hub of New York. And one of those initiatives is building a pretty complex center for mechatronics. So if you're familiar or have seen or have visited, because they actually have a line of tourists that go in, the Hudson Valley Community College site. They built a Mechatronics Center in 2019. Now, by Mechatronics, I really do want you to picture in your head, because when we meet with our guidance counselors, we do the same. If you're picturing in your head 1950s, what a 1950s factory may look like, dingy, dangerous, black and white. Go to 2022, it's robotics, computers, and mechatronic machines. It's day and night. So we're actually arranging a field trip for our local guidance counselors to go down to Hudson County so they can see what manufacturing in the 21st century really looks like. So for us and DCC, that includes robotic instruction on how to use robotics, and also really the core of advanced manufacturing is CNC machines. So Haas, if you're a NASCAR person, you know the name Haas. If you're an Indy person, you know the name Haas. They have very good race teams that do very well. And when you go to Hudson County Valley College, you will see a huge Grand Prix car right on the wall. The only university that has such a thing. So Haas is very well funded, and they're looking to set up these mechatronic hubs throughout the East Coast. So right now, Ulster Boces has a really nice mechatronics center. Hudson Valley has a really nice mechatronics center. Fishkill will be the next place to have a mechatronics center. They're taking that.
Where is that going to be located, by the way?
I think it's the old IBM campus. Am I correct there? They have a
Are you
building.
talking about East Fishkill,
Yes.
actually? Yeah.
Yes, they have a building there. They're
I
redoing
Park.
the whole building. Already have the funding through the county. We just took Dr. Jordan over to Hudson County Valley Community College last week, did a tour with him to see their program set up, and he's looking to emulate that 2-year advanced manufacturing degree. So it's really exciting. So the more we get into it, you're going to see a lot more pictures on our website as well to become more familiar with the advanced manufacturing. But I mean, we have Hatfield right down the road from us. For those of you who don't know Hatfield Manufacturing, they were a key manufacturing company in regards to COVID. They literally built the machines that produced and would shake the vials of during the pandemic. They went from one of those machines a month to producing 20 a month when the pandemic hits, and we're one of the major suppliers of producing the COVID vaccine during the pandemic. So we have some really huge advanced manufacturing companies around the area, and they're all hurting for employees. So they'll be part of our committee when we start building these programs, so we can better feed local businesses.
You said Hudson
This is
County
exciting.
Valley-
Hudson Valley
Hudson
Community
Valley
College.
Community College.
Where are they, where is
Troy?
that located?
An
Troy.
hour, yeah,
Oh,
about an
okay.
hour. Yeah, Haas just built a mechatronics center in 2019.
Cool.
So that's exactly the thing that Dutchess County Community College will be building as well. So it'll be exciting. I know they're working with IBM, they're working with Vassar, they're working with Marist. It'll be very similar if you've been to Marist lately and ever seen their new fashion Steel City, very similar to that. So it's exciting.
Awesome.
And if you've also been there, you know that everything in that building is computers. From sewing, the Italian guy isn't there anymore, it's now robot sewing. There's no mannequins, they use 3D impressions before they build the clothes. Everything is computerized and digitized, and everything lends itself back to advanced manufacturing, meaning you need someone to fix that equipment, you need someone to build that equipment, and you need someone to train you on that equipment.
That's very exciting. And please keep us posted on that and let us know when it becomes something that we want to start telling students about.
Definitely, and on our end, we're lucky enough to have a very good relationship with Haas, so 99% of the equipment we should be getting gratis. So we're excited about that.
Can you talk a bit about more about the pilot program in CTI and how that relates to what Assemblyman Jacobson is supporting?
So Jacobson is right behind us in the mechatronics program. my first tour of that was with Assemblyman Jacobson, and we've also gone down to the Brooklyn Navy Yard that they've redone completely to see their model of what advanced manufacturing will be looking like for the future. We've been working with Sue Serino in regards to expanding our ag science programming using a pilot that she's looking to get funding for. That, let's say Matt wanted to send an extra 10 kids to ag science, you may not have the money to do that. We might have the funding for that through the Senator's pilot program. So we're looking to start pilot programs 2 years in different areas right now to really use as evidence every budget year to show the legislature, hey, CTI works when it's funded. When you're not making districts choose between either or, it really works. So that will be part of our campaign.
Choosing between either or, could you elaborate on that? What is the choice we're talking about
Yeah,
there?
well, I think a lot of districts, and talking to our soups, not only in this county, but around the state, if you do have a child that wants to take part in career and technical education, as budgets get more and more tight, sometimes districts just don't have the funding to do that, to pay that $11,000, $12,000 a year. And as we discussed in Albany, we don't believe that districts should be put in that position. We believe there should be more funding for career and technical education through the state. So districts such as Beacon, so districts such as Dover, Pauling, don't have to make a choice between funding an AP program versus sending a child to CTI. No one should be put in that position. And I think most legislators I talk to agree with that. It's now in the process of, okay, so what's the money stream going to look like?
Well, this immediately strikes me as something for our advocacy agenda here. And could you send us some material on that to Matt's attention? And we have a committee that works on advocacy as well. So we'd like to hear more about that.
We'll send that over to you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
So this, I'm also interested in the CTI. I'm not in the committee, but I know Dutchess Community College. I'm glad you're working with them. They had a Next 10 analysis done. I believe that Next 10 analysis, what they did was they looked at occupations that need people, and you mentioned all that as well. How close are you with them, and are you feeding kids into their Next 10 program, or can you explain a little bit more about that relationship?
Sure. So Dr. Jordan and myself have spent so much time together, people are calling us brothers.
Okay.
He came in exactly at the same time as us and pretty much walked into a very similar situation as I did. So I speak to him on a regular basis, and we've made a plan with the county executive that programming he offers and creates, we're also going to offer and create, and programs we offer and create, they're going to offer and create. So there's some sort of continuum, right? So kids can see the long haul. So what we often find, especially with high school kids or middle schoolers, and that's why we want to get more CTE education at those lower levels, is that most students can't see the big picture. They can see tomorrow, they can't see down the road. So when we really spell out those continuums for them, from Boces to DCC to career options, along with salaries and what the training looks like, I think we get we get kids that are a lot more comfortable in saying, I'd like to do that, and kids that have a better understanding of what they need to do for their future. So for us, working with them has been wonderful. We literally have been doing programming for the last 4 months with DCC.
Okay. What are the limits? Like, I know resources is a limit, right? So, and I do know that there are some occupations that are in dire need of people, like you mentioned, not just in the automotive industry, not just in Mechatronics and stuff, but the traditional trades, right? There's quite a bit, and there's also actually including a healthcare crisis where there's a shortage of EMTs.
We're connecting our nursing programs
Okay.
over this year. We're creating various different nursing pathways, such as health aid will be a new pathway, EMT, paramedic as well. and that's in association with DCC, as well as an education pathway, early education, because obviously getting teachers right now is very difficult. We're creating that pathway. We're also tying into them with culinary as well. They do not have a culinary program. However, at Boces, we have 2 state-of-the-art kitchens. So we're right now in discussions of DCC taking one of those kitchens and us having the other to form a continuum in regards to culinary and doing various jobs out of that, whether that's more under the umbrella of tourism as well.
Okay. Yeah, I would like more information on all those different pathways that you're creating and how that reflects the job market as well.
Yeah, I'll send that over.
All right, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
No,
it.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good to
Have
see
a
you.
great night. Next, we have a budget update from Matt and Anne Marie.
Fancy. All right, so I'm going to kind of quickly go through my part of this because we talked about it at the last meeting, and then Anne Marie's going to talk about, the financing of everything. But just to recap, we have a growth-oriented budget this year. There's been some programmatic issues that we really want to deal with from, as you can see on this slide, pre-K all the way through the end of high school. So the big shift we want to do with pre-K for this upcoming year is to have a 1 full day program at each of our elementary schools. This will be a big shift for us. We're needing to add an additional teacher to pull that off. It would save roughly the same number of students that we're serving right now, but this year we only have 1 full day program. And so this would be a huge improvement on that. We're already accepting pre-K registrations. It's been ongoing, and kindergarten, and interest in this has been really high so far. Some things that we are proposing for Beacon High School in this, as you may remember, one of the things that we're doing with the high school this upcoming year is switching to a 9-period day. And so some of these help with that. One of the positions is a business teacher. That's the list of the courses the person will teach. This is something that we've been actually attempting to do for a few years now, but we have a better candidate pool this go around, so we're excited to hopefully be able to fill this position and get those courses going. There's very high interest in these classes among the students. Next is a special education teacher. That's to help serving student IEP needs. An additional English teacher at the high school that's going to support the classes that we need to offer with this transition to a 9-period day, but also to provide some ELA support. And then finally, it's not an additional position. We have a retirement here, but I'm mentioning this because it's kind of coming in conjunction with, in the summer of 2023, our renovation of the TV studio. So we are in the process of hiring a media teacher for next year, and they'll help be a part of at least kind of some of the implementation process of the new classroom. But those are the courses that person's going to teach next year, so we're excited about that as well. And then some things kind of across all 3 of the schools. One is an additional social worker, and that's already, we started that one this year. It just started a few weeks ago. And we're going to be, that person's housed right now at the high school. We're going to be moving the person for at least part of their time to Rombout as well, focusing on all of the student needs that have been coming up over the last year. This person that we hired has some background in drug and alcohol counseling, and so we're very excited to also have her working on some of those issues as well. You can't open, a newspaper online or see something on social media just about the state of mental health amongst young people, especially teenagers right now, just due to a lot of the hardships of the past couple of years. So this really meets a need for us to have that position. The next position is additional world language. This is to help with this expansion of the Italian language program. Again, it was, if I go back to when I started 5 years ago, there was lots of different things on the list that were discussed. One was that we were only offering one language, and now we have two, but we need to support that growth. And then finally, a halftime music teacher to help elementary schools. Instead of having like 2 or 3 teachers teach all the students in elementary school, it's an attempt to have one at each elementary school, and then some of them will be undersubscribed based on the size of the school, and so they'll be teaching some classes at Roundabout as well. This is a true scheduling trick, so we're working on the scheduling part of this to see what will work there. And then finally, we're funding these through some federal money. So these are 1-year teacher on special assignment positions we're proposing. One is to get restorative practices really off the ground, especially at Beacon High School, but also Roundabout. Another is a response to intervention coordinator at the elementary middle school. Then finally, a social emotional coordinator at the elementary level. We'll evaluate all of those positions and see what we need to continue or what we should just have as 1 year. My hunch is the RTI coordinator is going to be a need that we probably will need beyond just this upcoming year, but we are going to evaluate that as we go. But those are all 3 significant needs. At the elementary level for social emotional, that is really just to help us get a little bit more coherent with our social emotional curriculum at the elementary level and be both a support to students and teachers at all 4 of the elementary schools. So Anne Marie was going to just update about the state budget.
So I was hoping to tell you that the state budget was passed, but it is not. So we're going on the premise of what we do know. The governor's proposal for the New York State budget did have an increase in foundation aid. And looking at the Senate and Assembly's projections and their proposals, it looks like they are going to further increase state aid. So I'm actually hoping for that. As much as I was happy the foundation aid did go up in the governor's run, I do hope that we get a little bit extra money going forward. The UPK expansion will continue. When Matt mentioned our UPK program going to full day, we are utilizing the same grant that we've had over the last couple of years. But there is expansion money that we can tap into if need be. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that as well. And again, the Senate and Assembly is looking to really grow that program to all schools. So a lot of schools do not actually have the program. We were lucky enough to have it. So that's money that's going in that direction. Some of the items that I think that are still under discussion that really relate to school districts. I know there's some discussions between the Senate, Assembly, and the governor about zero-emission school buses and when that will completely roll out and be electric. School meals is still a conversation. Right now, we were being told that that the federal government will not be reimbursing for full the school meals, but that is a topic of conversation at the state level. And I know there's a big lobby effort for that as well. So we'll have to stay tuned for that. And I just mentioned earning cap for retirees. So in the governor's and the Senate's budget, they are going to waive the earning cap for retirees, I think mainly because there are some need for teachers that we are not seeing, especially secondary teachers with a dual certification. So that's really, really important for school districts across the state. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that as well. I just wanted to kind of throw this slide up. We had talked about this last year, but just as a reminder to everyone that we did receive federal stimulus money. The ESSER fund, the CARES Act, the $822,000 covered PPE, outside tents, cleaning, ventilation. That grant has been totally expended. We filed the final cost reports and received the money. The ESSER 2, which Matt had just mentioned, was paying for some of the TOSAs. Like that's what's in that budget. Again, the PPE that we used for the beginning of this year. Some of the staff is included in there as well. An American Rescue Plan, which was the $4.2 million, which was just approved within the last month. That's talking about ventilation infrastructure. It's about Academic learning loss, we have a couple of students on remote learning, very few, but that could cover those kind of costs as well. And social and emotional supports for students, which Matt also mentioned too, is in the budget for that going forward. Yes.
What's the, how usually the money comes with an expiration date? Like, when does the money have to be spent?
So the ESSER 2 fund, the expiration date is in 2023, and the American Rescue Plan is in 2024. So although both of those budgets are approved by the state, they can continually be updated with a budget amendment. So if needs change, some things that are getting paid for by ESSER 2 would, not be in the American Rescue Plan. So it's a constant working document. So although those have been approved, we do quarterly reporting or half-yearly reporting, and then we could do budget amendments to change that. So I kind of joke about how difficult it was to spend $4.2 million all in one shot and try to think about it over 2 or 3 years. I didn't think it would be that difficult, but it was, because you're making projections over what's going to happen over the next year or two. So you do the best you can, filling it into the parameters, and then being able to fix, and work with it going forward. I don't know if you can see the very top. This calculation, and I apologize for being small, I hope you can read it, is how we calculated the tax cap for this year. So we start off with the prior tax levy. We've done a lot of discussion over the last several years about the tax-based growth factor, which is the blue line underneath. So for Beacon, again, it's one of the highest in the county. That's a reflection of all the growth that's happening in Beacon, so it allows us to grow the levy a little bit more than some other communities. The allowable growth factor, again, the second line item in blue. So that's that 2%, right? So you're allowed to grow the levy a maximum of 2% or CPI, and because of the state of our economy, we are allowed to go to the max of 2%. So we can add the 2% part there. I like to say that because people go, oh, 2%. It's a part of the calculation, but not the total amount of what the levy can increase. Again, capital exclusion is for things, it's for our debt, our principal and interest payments, less any building aid and transportation aid that we get. So all in all, we can increase the levy $1.6 million or 3.87%. That number is higher than it was last year. It is not the highest that it's ever been since the tax cap. But with the tax-based growth factor and the allowable growth factor, we are able to increase it by that amount. So our revenue projection. So again, this is the governor's run. I always like to do this. And again, before we ask the board to adopt the budget, we will have the final numbers, so it will be a little bit more clear. But this is the revenue sources. So the state aid number here, although we did get an increase, I want to explain that part. I'm using the projection from last year, so we didn't get quite as much state aid, and that's really expense-driven aids. So it looks like it's a decrease, but the foundation aid projection for 22-23 is an increase. The difference is also the use of other reserves and fund balance. We are going to increase it by $550,000. We did have money become available in the general fund. Our unappropriated fund balance will grow because of our federal stimulus money. We're able to allocate some of the things that we normally would have to pay for in the general fund budget, and we can use federal stimulus money. So rightfully so, we should be using some of that to pay for the budget going forward for the taxpayers. And the miscellaneous revenue did increase a little bit. We are allocated, if you remember in Mike Keeley's presentation, he did talk about E-rate. So that was a small increase in E-rate, so that goes into the miscellaneous revenue account as well. So the budget-to-budget amount will grow $2.6 million, and the levy just for the budget is the 3.7%, and then we're going to talk in a minute about a bus proposition.
So Anne Marie, based on the numbers that you received from the government so far in New York State, we have a balanced budget, correct? With
Yes.
what we're proposing. What happens if we get more additional funds? Like, what are we looking to do if we get additional funds once it's set?
So the thought process would be not to use as much unappropriated fund balance because we are asking the taxpayers to approve a capital reserve on the ballot. And that's, so if we don't use the money to balance the budget, if we do get more state aid from using the Senate or Assembly, we could decrease the amount that we're using in unappropriated fund balance, and we're able to fund the capital reserve a little bit more than we would have.
Were we expecting to have to utilize the unappropriated fund balance in future years after next year?
We've been using it all along every year. That's a little bit higher than what we normally have done. We usually do about $2.5 million. So that's money that was budgeted for but wasn't used in the general fund. And that's, that happens even if we didn't have federal stimulus money. So, you know, we're trying to utilize it in the best way we can, and actually try to fund the capital reserve as much as possible.
And I forgot, any positions that we've created in the last year or looking to create in the next year or two, are we paying for that through any federal funds that are going to expire in 2024?
The only one for this year was the social worker that we just hired this year. We had allocated money out of federal stimulus, but going forward, it's in the general fund budget.
So
going
we're
forward.
budgeting for that after the
And
2024.
the 3 one-year positions, we wanted
for the
to just
TOSAs.
just using the federal
Right.
funds, so then we could kind of make an evaluation over a year of whether it's something that we wanted to, you know, pull into our budget.
Are we planning for that? Like, let's say that it's successful, the model's successful with the TOSAs and stuff. Are we starting to look for how we could have a balanced budget and fund them through our district budget and not federal funds?
If we found, yes, if we found that it's something to be continuing. So we also look at, you know, we have teacher retirements every year, and we are replacing all of the positions, but as you know, with, you know, breakage in salary, we are able to save a little money there as well. So that'll be a strategy we use to try to incorporate them in.
And this year, you may recall, we had 3 class size reduction positions at the elementary level that were just funded through the federal money, and those are all, we pulled all those back. Like, we don't need those going forward. We reduced elementary class sizes significantly this year, and we don't feel like that's to that level needed. So, but one of the things I think we will evaluate going forward is just class size too. Like, if class sizes warrant us maybe allocating a position towards like the RTI coordination or reading support or something like that, I think we're probably going to be in a good position next year to make some of those decisions. So we're trying to look at it with a longer term lens, but the TOSAs, like, our only caution with those TOSAs, that's why we're doing like the federal funded for years. We also just want to see how it works.
Yep.
They're positions that are somewhat new, at least in my time here.
Well, and that's where we could look through attrition, right? If a teacher's retiring, and do
Right.
we still need to do it because our class sizes are so low where, you know, we may not be able to, but that's where a TOSA could kind of go into or something.
Yes. So I mentioned the bus proposition. So we are, there will be a proposition on the ballot in May to purchase new buses. And when Deborah Call was here doing transportation budget, she talked about the need for school buses. We did miss a year because of COVID. So we are replacing 372 passenger buses, 320 passenger buses. And again, the total amount that we're going to purchase is spread over 5 years to match the transportation state aid that we receive. And Beacon does receive 60.7% in state aid. So it kind of matches what our principal and interest payments would be for that. I also want to mention again, Deb mentioned in her transportation budget that we did have cars. We did have a lot of students that were going, so it was one student going to one location, and we are planning to put them out to auction to receive some money back. And it being a used car market right now, we feel that that would be great for the district just to receive a little bit of additional revenue. Some of the buses that are being surplused will also be traded into the dealer, so this number may be a little bit less, going forward, but this is the total cost right now.
And just to go back to, you don't have to go back on the slide, but I know from the NISCUS, the State Superintendent Association, I haven't been keeping up with NISBA over the weekend, but it sounds like there's some very strong advocacy happening about the electric electric bus initiative, you know, the NISCUS lobbyists are lobbying hard for districts really need a clear funding stream over the next decade, the next 12 years to pull this off. Like, just don't say it, like, come up with a spending plan. So that appears to be one of the things still in negotiation
Yes.
right now, and that may be a several year thing, but I was glad to see that, because I you know, the idea is really exciting, but like the paying for part, hopefully the state comes through with that.
Yes.
Is there a reason why we would trade in the buses and not put it up for auction?
There's not, we could do that. We can try to auction. The buses, we didn't have as much of a success rate on the auction, whereas we got it more on the trade-in value, but we can try again and see what we can get. The good thing about the auction, both for buses and cars, is that we do not have to accept an offer. So if we feel it's really low and there's another aftermarket place to put it, we can do that. So I feel more comfortable with that. We just haven't had any success for buses in auction as opposed, but we can try it.
When was the last time you attempted to do an auction of old buses? Has it been a while?
It's been a while, yes.
The school buses now are like this van life trend where people are converting old school buses into like RVs. You might have better luck now auctioning them
No,
off.
that's a great point. And it doesn't cost the district anything to put it up on auction. All the fees are paid by the buyer. So we can do that first before we do a trade-in. That would be a great idea. I didn't even think of that, right? That's a whole different market.
I know a couple people who bought school buses at auction and turned them into like luxury, like a house.
And they could hire CTI graduates.
I was just going to say.
That's right.
tear out
It's
the
a whole
bus seats
circle
and-
thing. That's pretty cool. Does anyone else have any questions? Our plan is to, once this is finalized and before we ask, and it might be the night we do ask the board, we will share what the final numbers are so that you know what they are before we ask you to vote on the final
And
budget.
we also want to, for that, and then the community outreach part, just be really clear about what this means to taxpayers in the community. So that will be coming too, once we get the final state numbers.
Well, if we know what we're gonna do if the funds go up, right? Can't we do it and then, can't we approve and then amend later on if we needed to? Do we have another board meeting before it has to be done?
We have a special board meeting the week we come back from spring break, the 21st. And it has to be adopted by that Friday. So I mean, we're both hearing that the state budget should be adopted by Thursday or Friday of this week. So once those numbers come in, I can just, recalculate and be there. I also wanted to get an idea from the city of Beacon, because what we've been seeing is the assessments have gone up for the city of Beacon because there's been properties that have been added every year, and I envision that will happen again this year. That will actually help calculate what the tax rate might be, so we can give taxpayers a little better idea what that would mean for them on their tax bill.
But Anthony, you're saying to adopt it tonight?
And then amend if needed.
Well,
Because if we know if we get an increase, we're gonna put it towards the unappropriated fund balance.
what's the benefit in adopting it tonight?
Then you don't have to do a special board meeting.
But if we amend it,
We do.
we have to do a board meeting for
No,
that.
we don't. We're saying that if we get additional costs, it would go to the unappropriated fund balance.
We can,
We would lower the unappropriated fund balance that we are utilizing to pay to balance the budget.
so we can do a conditional approval?
We could do a resolution that we're adopting it, and if the numbers change, the additional spending would go towards lowering the unappropriated fund balance.
I know, it sounds like a conditional approval.
It's not conditional, you're approving it, and you're saying if it amends, this is how we're gonna utilize the money.
I mean, normally in the past anyway, when we've done it, we've had the
was
final
just a thought. I was
numbers
just
from the
throwing out.
state. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we had approved final numbers. I didn't, regardless if it was the original numbers or the new numbers, we had to always approve the final numbers.
You
Well,
don't
the-
have to, you could do it.
I think-
Presenting another option, you don't have to do it that way, I was just throwing it out there.
Okay.
I think we vote on the total budget amount, which will stay the same, no matter how
Right.
it's paid for. I think that's what you're saying.
Correct.
So I just asked Kelly just to look up what the
What was
resolution.
the total budget amount? 79 something.
Yes. Hold The budget part is 78,641.
So that would stay the same regardless.
Right.
I'm for efficiency.
Do we need the special meeting for anything else? Were we,
We were putting everything on the 26th.
May as well.
You're saying we should do this tonight?
I'm saying we can do it tonight because the final budget isn't going to change. And if the numbers change, then we're saying that, that's why I asked about how we would utilize it.
Right.
So it would reduce the unappropriated fund balance that we utilize to balance the budget.
No, I get it. I'm just thinking maybe if we want to do that, maybe when we have more board members here.
I mean, it's a little bit of a
Formality.
yeah. I wouldn't be concerned about other board members feeling,
Okay.
I mean, does anyone else?
That's not a concern then.
It's a very simple
It's, 2 lines.
motion that's just the amount,
Yeah,
essentially.
okay. I'm okay. Is everyone else okay with that?
I don't see the hurry. What's the hurry? What's the advantage of doing it?
We don't have to meet on
Don't
the
have to do a
21st.
special meeting on the 21st.
We already scheduled that, though, didn't we?
Tentatively.
Yeah, we've cleared it with everyone.
And because I mean, I guess all of us have to agree to it too, because we're at quorum.
Yeah,
So,
right. If
I
it-
mean, Greg, are you interested in coming on the 21st?
It's on my schedule.
Are you interested in having the day off on the 21st? The night off?
What night of the week is it?
Thursday.
It's a Thursday. I mean, we have other meetings that night. We have committee meetings that night, so I'm already going to be, but,
Whatever, I was just proposing it. I know I couldn't make it. I said that before, so.
on the 21st, yeah.
Yeah, I would be interested in efficiency.
Craig, are you planning to vote against it?
I'm opposed.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll, 21st.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Matt or Anne Marie?
Thank you.
You said by the end of the week, you're hearing that hopefully, okay.
I saw Thursday on,
Okay.
predicted on Twitter.
I know there's been a lot of pushback about, how to pay for all the climate change initiatives, including the bus idea,
Yeah.
which definitely need those details around that.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks
you
so
very
much. Can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual, and the board will return in about 45 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Melissa, Anthony, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, passes 5-0. Okay, thank you for your patience.
I can move pretty fast.
That was pretty good.
We do have one change to the agenda. The non-instructional personnel item 11.04C2 has been removed. Are there any parent groups or student and school presentations? I don't see any in the audience here. I don't see any online either. Superintendent's report.
All right, I'll be quick tonight since we had a couple long presentations. One is just a reminder, we put the survey, it has 4 pretty quick questions, or you can go as quickly as you want to, it's kind of open-ended, to direct our strategic planning steering committee. So we've had 400 plus responses already, so I'm going to send out more reminders to folks to get that done before the end of this week. Our strategic planning steering committee met last week, and we had a great start reviewing and trying to improve district vision and mission, and starting to kind of gear up for the next phase, which is really starting the planning process. It's all very exciting. And just one other update, we have an additional day on spring break. Now, I've put it in a few emails, but I'll send out more reminders about it this week. Due to, it felt like every other weekend it snowed, and so we had less actual snow days because it snowed so much or iced so much on the weekend. The way we set up our calendar for this year, that if we had an extra give back day, it would be to extend spring break. So Monday, April 18th will now be a day off. I think next year's calendar, if we have a give back day, it extends Memorial Day weekend. So next year will be different, but this year that extra day is Monday, April 18th. No school on that day, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Matt, I was talking to a community member about the strategic plan and the survey, and they were like, you just did a strategic plan, you're doing another. So I just want to be clear that this is a reboot of the last strategic plan.
Yeah, the last one really set up what we want to see in our graduate or in our graduates, excuse me. But it didn't really get into the planning part. We were about to embark on that when COVID hit 2 years ago, and our planning became very different. So it's really more about taking it to the next level now.
Thank you. Moving on to committee reports and board comments. Anthony?
Good evening. I'm actually pretty happy with the Boces presentation. Usually I kind of fight them. I like hearing the progress with the curriculum and how they're actually looking working as cooperatives and making our providing opportunities for our kids to contribute to the workforce and in retrospect to their own lives as well. So thank you for bringing them in and sponsoring them to come in and stuff like that. Thank you for all the work on the budget as well. I know it's always a crunch around this time of year, so we'll make it to the finish line, like we always do. But appreciate the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Alyssa?
I also was really excited about the Boces presentation. It sounds like they've got a lot of great ideas and programming happening. The next meeting of the policy committee will be April 18th. However, given the announcement you just made about school being off, do we still have our meeting?
Actually, under new business, we're going to talk about the committee meeting, so
Okay.
probably not.
Okay. All right. So then I have nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony?
Sure. So the curriculum committee met between our last meeting and now. The first part of the meeting really discussed summer services. So this Beacon's going to run a summer school program for credit recovery for high school students. They're also going to run a middle school elementary session. They're looking at session 1 being from July 11th to July 18th, session 2 being from August 1st to August 8th. And that will be for students that need just additional access to supports over the summer. Then they also talked about the extended school year services for PPS. That's a 6-week program. They meet 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. That will be in-house. That will start from July 5th and go to August 19th. Secondary start time will be 7:45 and leave at 11:45. Elementary will be 8:15 and leave at 12:15. E&L will be 2 days a week, and that's starting July 11th. And they'll have a culminating activity at DIA. Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 11. All positions should be posted prior to spring break, so they could hopefully get some good candidates and internal people so they could plan for the summer. Then the committee talked about RTI restructure as well as AIS. So RTI, they're really looking to utilize Google Forms and Google platforms to create databases and to monitor students' goals, to eliminate paper that can be lost when students are moving from elementary to secondary. And they're looking at a bank of evidence-based interventions to assist with student and monitoring student progress. Academic Intervention Services, AIS, elementary level. They're going to do some screeners in the end of June and to see how students are doing. AIS will be done in May for K2 screening. Then it talked about PD. There's a .2 person from Boces. That's 1 time a week. We'll support the initiatives that we have. Then they talked about iReady and iReady implementation and how to support it. They talked about the Wilson Program Foundations for K2 and how they're looking at developing the foundational reading skills. There was a heavy discussion on science standards, the implementation of the secondary science standards, which are looking to be adopted, I think, by 2026, I think, is when they're looking to have those embedded, and that's the next gen learning standards. The district currently uses the Science 21. There is no state test this year for grade 5. They're moving it to grade 4. They're moving it to grade 5 for the next year. So that's a change. Science 21 is a program that's developed by teachers, a bank of teachers, and they support that through Putnam Northern Westchester Boces. K3 uses mystery science. Next year, all classrooms must teach 2 hours of science a week with at least 2 hours of social studies per week. And then they talked about the new Regents biology or living environment and earth science spaces. Mystery science was discussed as another tool. Materials will need to be purchased each year. Mapping will need to be done. And there's accountability unit implementation needs to be outlined to match standards. And then there was a small conversation about social studies, how the district doesn't have a formal curriculum for social studies, but they're looking to see, they use Engage New York for social studies modules and stuff. And they're looking at Discovery 21, but there's no formal curriculum piece. Any questions?
What time did you say the summer school started?
For the AIS?
Yeah, no, for the ESY.
The ESY, July 5th to August 19th. It's a little more than 6 weeks.
What time in the morning does it start?
For secondary, it would be 7:45 students arrive, and they leave at 11:45.
Okay.
Elementary, 8:15 to 12:15. And that really goes around, yeah, it needs to be a 6-week program, so. Is the E&L program through grant fund? Do we pay for that ourselves?
Yeah, and they're coming in twice a week, but they're also going to have the opportunity to sit in on the 4-day-a-week schedule as well. But twice a week, they're going to get pulled and get their specific services. I just want to clarify about Science 21. We're not using Science 21 yet.
Okay.
We're going to be introducing Science 21 next year. Anthony's going to be so happy right now because Science 21 is all inquiry based.
Great.
So I'm going to explain that.
So just on a side note, I had a Ulster Boces rep working with my 4th grade teachers this year on Unit 4 of Science 21 in Wallkill. And, you know, the teachers were very happy with it. It has stepped up the rigor, which should help with our region sciences in the high school because they're vocabulary rich. So they're taking some of that rich vocabulary and pushing it down to the elementaries, which is all, you know, hands-on unit-based stuff.
Great.
And I will share next week.
Yeah.
The next
26.
plans.
Great. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, Anthony. Craig?
Yeah, for facilities and operations, we needed to cancel that meeting this past week. But we did have the Audit and Finance Committee meeting where we interviewed 3 candidates, representatives from 3 candidate firms for internal auditor. All very good firms, well-established and well-spoken and with a good program to offer us. Not a real simple choice. I think we may have seen maybe a couple of favorites in there. We're at the present status of having Anne Marie and crew do some reference checking with the background. One of these firms, none of them are really local to the Mid-Hudson Valley per se. I think we exhausted those possibilities some time ago. But when we reached out to the metro area in Long Island and Albany, we found some good candidates we hadn't seen before. So we expect to see further reports on that and probably bring something to the board in short order. So if all goes well. And we reviewed the usual claims audits and so on and the policies that have been referred to us by policy committee. I'm very pleased at the Boces report. You know, when they started talking about cars and fixing cars, I was one of the early buyers of a Toyota hybrid Prius. And when I bought it, I asked, you guys know how to fix this thing, right? And they said, yeah, we have a guy that knows how. I said, a guy? One? Yeah, he's been to the factory training. Oh, there'll be more. There'll be more. And I was going to take a trip through several states at that time. I literally made a list of all of the dealerships between here and there, just in case anything went wrong, because this wasn't a machine that was going to be fixed by anybody in the local mechanic shop, unless it was just a tire. But things have gotten a lot better then, but it's true. They're having trouble in some of these dealerships and some of these job shops in getting enough people that know how to do very sophisticated work. And it involves learning how to use computers as well as wrenches. You need multiple skills. If anything, the job has become more upskilled over time than anybody ever expected back in the old days of the, they used to call the grease monkeys. They still have grease. Nothing went away, and everything was layered on top of it. The semiconductor content of a car is huge, and you have to know how to diagnose all that stuff and figure out what it means. And it doesn't stay the same long. So I'm thrilled that they're doing these programs, because we all know what happens when you want to install something, fix something, upgrade something. It's who you're going to call. And very often you find out there's not a lot of other people on the other end, and well, we're having staffing shortages. So that's how fast progress is going these days when you see those kind of shortages. But I have to say, back when some of us older folks went to school, we all took shop and the girls all took home ec. And yes, it was sexist, but you know, there's nothing that says that women can't fix cars and nothing says that men can't cook. So when we have these programs like CTI, I'm delighted to see any kind of expansion. I was a little concerned about the talk about how we maybe you have to choose between the expenses of the one thing versus the other. I certainly hope that nobody in this district is ever denied an opportunity to do Career and Technical Institute training if they so choose.
That his advocacy was not centered on Beacon. My first year here, we lifted the cap that we had on students who wanted to do it, and we've never held a student back from doing it. I think he was just talking more like in general across the state or something.
Had me worried a little bit there. Okay. Yeah, very good. So those are my comments for today.
Thank you. And I have no comments. So moving on to new business. I wanted to discuss, we talked about this in agenda setting, the emergency authorization to have meetings online ends on April 15th, I believe. And it seems like it's a little bit of a heavy lift for people to get used to having to go back to meetings in person. And so we thought that maybe we could move some of the meetings to every other month, mostly because I think we're very on top of the policy committee's work and other work, and we can always, even with facilities and operations, a lot of that is just getting updates, and maybe it's good for the entire board to hear that. So how does everyone feel about that?
You're saying the committee meetings every other month?
Yes.
Fine with that.
I think that's okay.
All of them or just some of them?
I think just the policy committee for one, because I feel like we're really,
The last one we're done in like 15
yeah,
minutes.
I think we can move through more in a meeting than we've been doing.
Yeah, maybe with some strategic, choosing of policies, like if we've got like 5, cake ones and then 1 or 2.
Right, if there's a meteor thing to
Yeah.
go through, we can look at that. And then just looking at the next month or so, for example, we were supposed to have a policy committee meeting on the 18th, but now there's no school on the 18th. We're supposed to have a facilities and an audit committee meeting on the 21st. We did just have an audit committee meeting. We may need a short update on just the any research you'd got back on the firms that we met with. And maybe I don't know if there will be do we need a full facilities and operations meeting, or do we just need a short update then as well, since we didn't have this meeting?
I think it would probably be good to have facilities in a couple of weeks.
So I
I
think,
mean, one of the things I'm sorry to jump in, like with facilities, with this, we have a huge capital project we're involved with right now, and we have Perry working with us, but also our architects. We talked about doing like semi-regular updates to the whole board in a board meeting. Part of this is just an acknowledgement of how busy you all are, and trying just not to have meetings just to have one. I do think we probably should have a facilities one in a couple of weeks, though, right?
well, we are going to be getting together for the special board meeting on the 21st. So I think that, Anthony, you are not available that night, right? Are you okay if we go ahead and have a facilities? Thank you. And we can get an audit update then, but maybe it's just an update, not a full meeting, since it's the same members.
Well, I think we should proceed as usual in the short run. In the longer run, which is what I think the spirit of your initiative is here, is to consider what the longer-term scheduling of committees might be. And I think that may vary from one committee to another. I can understand policy, having gone through the whole book, doesn't need to do as much now. Might be a waste of time to stick to the old schedule.
I just think that if we set a year-long schedule, then it's easy to have them on and cancel it. So, it's just hard because not every
Right.
committee's been setting a year-long schedule, right?
Well,
If
actually,
they set that, it would be easier.
every committee did set a year-long schedule, and we've ended up changing the meetings a lot, and so that's why, and that combined with, we will be needing to meet in person again, which I think is not a bad thing at all. But, so it's sort of a combination of the two things, and I'm mostly want to just get to the July 1st, and then every committee can talk about how often they think they should meet, and I think that is something, especially for the policy committee to discuss, is like, do we really need to meet every month? Because I don't think we need to meet for the sake of meeting. I want those meetings to be productive and, worth everyone leaving their home or their family.
One other point, we're going to have a couple new board members that would appear due to vacancies that are occurring. So there may be some new players with different schedules or thoughts. I would hope that we get some new people who would be happy to join up with some of our working committees, too.
Definitely, yeah. So we really can't plan beyond the end of June here, and mostly I want to just get us through April, but, and into May. So is it okay? I'm going to, maybe we should not do policy for April at all. Do you know what we have? Anne Marie, do we have a lot that we need to do before July 1st?
We don't have a lot. We have some that are a little bit more complicated
Yeah.
than others, but nothing, terribly, there's not a huge list.
And we need to wrap up by the end of June, yeah?
Yeah. So maybe I'm thinking maybe we just move policy to May.
Okay.
Does that sound okay to you?
Do you think that we can get through everything, the meatier stuff, by the end of June? Okay.
So normally it's, is it the third Monday that we've been meeting?
It's been like right in the middle of the month, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
And if we need to do a longer meeting,
right. We could do an hour and a
could
half
do
meeting.
a
if we
longer
need to.
meeting to get through them all, since if we're gonna change it to an every other month cadence, then that would mean we only have one meeting left before the end of the school year.
Well, we're
right?
going to have a meeting, so we have a meeting a board meeting on May 17th, but that's just the canvas of the votes meeting, and we're sort of waiting around for for the final vote tally. So we could move that meeting to then, and just do it before that. Does that sound okay to you? Okay, so and Anthony, is that okay for you?
I think so. It's Tuesday, right?
It's a Tuesday.
I think so.
Okay, and I'll check in.
So Meredith, I can be there, but Kelly won't be able to come and take notes because she'll be.
Oh, right, of course.
Oh.
So one of us will take notes.
Yeah. Let's keep that. I think that's a good use of our time. So I'm putting that on the 17th. And then in terms of the 21st, on the 21st, we'll do facilities and an audit update I'm putting. So the special meeting will be at 8, and the facilities and audit will be so we can do it 6:30 to 8. Does that sound like it'll,
Which date are you talking about?
April 21st?
April 21. Yeah, you just want to change the times a little bit?
Well, if we do a short update on audit and a full our facilities, we could do the special meeting then at 8 o'clock. Is that,
The only thing you're changing is shortening audit and finance.
Yep.
correct, and then we have the special meeting at 8.
Uh,
So,
Does that work? I think it works.
yeah, Anne Marie?
Probably.
We need to check with
Make sure
architects.
Bill's available for, yeah, okay, well, I'll put that on there, we can check with Kristen, you can check with Bill. And then, there was one other thing here, so, and then we had a board meeting on May 2nd, but that's been moved to May 9th.
That's been moved? The May 2nd is
Yes.
now May 9th?
Yes. And so we're moving the PRAL meeting as
Also.
well to the 9th. And that's it. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just updating my calendar. Okay, great, thank you very much.
I have another question
Mhm.
under new business. Do we have to accept the resignation?
We don't, I checked in with the legal and we do not.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
11.03.
Could you do me a favor and just for tonight?
Yeah, you're
Because you
you're
did approve
quorum.
the committee protocols, and this is part of the committee protocols, and the minutes will not pass. I mean, it's not a big deal, obviously.
You got a baseball card out of it. Come on.
Gave you a
1964 baseball card? Thing?
That'll be worth something.
It was not transactional. I gave it to you.
You don't break her heart.
11.03. I'm pulling 11.16. Are there any others?
What are you pulling?
I'm pulling the legal notice. Can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 11.15 less 11.03?
So moved.
Second.
Alyssa, Anthony, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to approve 11.03?
So moved.
Second.
Alyssa, Anthony, comments or questions?
You know, if it doesn't pass tonight, you could put it on the next board meeting.
My heart,
Which I think is what, the 21st?
No, I thought there was a
Right.
policy. I thought there was a policy against that.
First? Or 26th.
you can't do it the same meeting.
Yeah, but I thought there was a policy against that.
You-
Once
yeah, I
it's
can't-
voted down, you can't really bring it up the next meeting.
It's minutes. They could adjust them.
What, like a
there-
letter?
Add a little bit more detail to it.
Or maybe we should just table it, huh?
Are there any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
I am in favor, does not pass. 4-1. 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Can I have a motion to approve 11.16?
So moved.
Second.
Anthony, Alyssa, comments or questions? I pulled this because I wanted to make note that there are, normally we have 3 seats up for a reelection every year. This year, we will have 4. I want to thank Jasmine Johnson for her service. We heard from her at the end of last week that she's no longer able to serve as a board member. And so I also really appreciate that she gave us notice and time for us to put this on the ballot so that we can have an election and not go through an appointment process again. So again, thank you, Jasmine, for your service, and spread the word, people. Any other comments or questions?
I echo the same sentiment. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Anthony,
So if I object,
Alyssa.
I'll walk out. You can't hold me here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then the meeting will end because you don't have a quorum.
I'm in favor, passes 5-0. Have a great night, everyone.
Good.